Sean, I applaud you for being so transparent about your objectives.
People work in the defense of our country and the defense industry are playing a vital role for the cause of freedom. So I don't really call it a corrupting influence or suggest that somehow that's a corrupting influence. I actually like the experience that goes along with working for defense contractors. But I've got to listen.
One of the things I loved about that interview with Tucker, was we were actually able to have a thoughtful conversation and go deep into issues rather than this kind of political gotcha.
The point is this.
Good.
You go on these interviews. Yeah, I have nothing but nice things to say. But here's your problem.
People should watch it.
You go on these shows, people quote your exact words, and you deny your own words. And I'm saying if you're going to be a presidential candidate and you're going to spend, I'm going to give you your exact words, either own it.
Sean, you have been sitting here for years talking about the fake news media.
But you played this all the time.
Sean, I'm enjoying this. You have been laughing about the fake news media how many times for the last several years, and now you're buying the mainstream media narrative.
All right, folks. Well, today we got to react to one of the more controversial conservative on conservative interviews that I can remember in recent history, where Sean Hannity goes back and forth with Vivek Ramaswamy over the topic of not just what's happening right now in the Middle East, obviously, but that framed in the greater context of the American military-industrial complex, the neocons, and perhaps a greater agenda here to drag America into this conflict, which I have been saying the past few days is something we need to be very careful about. And my overall stance, just to reiterate on this, is that, look, on one hand, what is happening right now in the Middle East is obviously a very sad and tragic situation to watch. At the same time, the line here must be clearly established that this is not America's war. This is not an American conflict, right? And I have pointed out we need to be very careful about the neocon agenda here to push America into war, specifically to push America into war with Iran. We pointed out how Lindsey Graham literally went on TV and called for the bombing of Iran and all this other crazy nonsense, right? And that is something I cannot get on board with. And that's also something that Vivek Ramaswamy is not on board with. And that's where I have to say, you know, we're going to watch this here in a second. And obviously you're free to formulate your own opinion here. But look, on one hand, I do have a lot of respect for Sean Hannity, and I mean that sincerely. He is a legend of the conservative media space. I respect him a lot on a professional level, but I have to say, especially on a lot of this foreign policy stuff, I'm definitely more so on the side of Vivek, which is that, you know, you can look at a situation like this and pray for peace and see it as a terrible situation. But on the other hand, again, this is not an American conflict, and anyone suggesting or trying to push you into America going back into the Middle East, which we've already pointed out is happening, but keep in mind over the next few months how much that talk accelerates, because I guarantee you it is coming, right? So, you know, I overall have to side with Vivek in this situation. But that said, let's get into this discussion, because they go back and forth and have a lot of conversations here about the military-industrial complex and all that stuff, and I think there's a lot of things we need to talk about. So let's react without further ado to Sean Hannity v. Vivek Ramaswamy. Here we go.
With us. You know, I was a little surprised. I know you were on with Tucker, and I'm open to anybody's opinion, but you kind of, what you're doing here is saying about Nikki Haley is you're saying that her concern for Israel is driven by financial and a corrupting influence, and your explanation that this disproportionate focus on rape, kidnapping, and murder of the Jewish people in this attack, and that and your quote, that there are frankly financial and corrupting influences that lead them exactly to speak the way they do.
Sean, that is a...
So obviously, I think that's kind of a minor mischaracterization of our position, but I think there is absolutely truth to the idea that, again, and I will reiterate this, right? I'm not denying the evils and horrors that are going on in Israel and the Gaza Strip and all of that, obviously. But yes, a lot of the people who are pushing the things that they are pushing, especially in American media, right? I'm not telling Israelis how to feel about this conflict. It's understandable how they feel. But a lot of the Americans, yes, specifically American politicians who are pushing and saying the things they're saying, again, have an agenda here. And the agenda, as we pretty explicitly pointed out, talking about Lindsey Graham the other day, is yes, they want to drag America into a war with Iran, off of the argument that Iran funds Hamas, Hamas attacked Israel, therefore America must go to war with Iran. So I think that again, it's a little bit kind of tongue in cheek the way he's trying to throw it at us, but I think that overall sentiment, it has truth to it, especially with Nikki Haley. I think Nikki Haley in general, right? A lot of the things she says are motivated by financial interests, but let's continue.
Shameful mischaracterization when I'm talking about Azerbaijan.
Stop right now.
And
I'll
Armenia,
read the exact tweet. You do this in every single interview. You say stuff and then
so cutting him off already.
You deny your own words. So, why don't you just own what you say and stand by it and stop playing these games?
I am owning what I say, Sean.
Well, I'm just telling you what you said.
I am owning what I say. Well, I'm telling you,
you're a smart guy. I would assume you remember what you say
anytime they want. Yeah, I absolutely do. And so, Sean, maybe we have a debate that we need to have in our party. What's happening in Azerbaijan and Armenia was a separate discussion that I had, and I do believe that it is shameful that Azerbaijan is getting away with what they are because they have a powerful lobby in the U.S. But it is shameful to extrapolate that to the comments in Israel, where, to be honest, I have been crystal clear that what's happened is barbaric. It is medieval. It is wrong. And Israel absolutely said this since day one, say it now, has the right to defend itself to the fullest extent. Where I differ from others.
Again, I agree, but it's their war. It's their war. It's not our war. It's their war.
Other candidates in this field is that I also believe that this is Israel's decision to make. The U.S. should stand with Israel. But we need to be very careful not to enter a broader regional war in the Middle East.
I have not heard a single Republican, Vivek, I've not heard a single Republican call for that. But I really want
Lindsey Graham, and I quote, "We are in a religious war." And I'm pretty sure in the same interview called for the bombing of Iran. So I've heard plenty. Okay, I've heard plenty.
Explanation here. I want an explanation to the. Can I finish? I want an exact explanation for your exact comments that there are, frankly, financial and corrupting influences that lead them exactly to speak the way that they do. Now,
what's crazy about that?
Why would you say, what are the financial corrupting influences that Nikki Haley is taking a position on? We've got pictures of dead babies decapitated, burned babies' bodies.
Sean,
we've got the equivalent of what would be population-wise in the U.S. over 37,000 dead Americans. So how much more evidence do you? What are you talking about?
Sean, what I'm talking about is what's happening in Israel is an atrocity, and the U.S. absolutely,
you're not answering my question,
should stand with Israel.
Answer the question.
A separate question, which is the corrupting influence on our politicians. Well, the fact of the matter is,
exactly.
I think anybody who has been a military contractor, anybody who has made $8 million, including on serving on the board of Boeing, collecting stock options while running for U.S. president on corporate boards, has made money from military contracting through a family business, is disqualified from being the U.S. president in a time of war. I think we cannot see our march to World War III in this country. My top priority from a foreign policy perspective is avoid World War III.
Let me be straight.
This is what angers me so much about this entire dialogue is I agree 100% with him on this, with Vivek, that, yeah, what's happening is horrible, but also there is this obvious agenda by the neocons that, I'm not accusing Sean Hannity of being bought and paid for, but I think in a way he's playing into here by basically screaming about the dead babies, the atrocity. How can you? It's like, we're not denying that. We're saying that, right? We need to be careful about the way we talk about this as Americans because we don't want to be dragged into this war ourselves. But you can't have that conversation. I can't even have that conversation with a lot of the viewers sometimes because immediately they basically come out with the figurative knives and say, so you're saying what's happening to Israeli civilians is good? What about the babies? Blah, blah. We cannot have a level-headed, rational discussion about America's role in this greater conflict without being accused of, I don't know, downplaying civilian deaths. There's some people accuse us of being anti-Semitic. It's an insane conversation over something that, again, is pretty balanced and reasonable. We don't want America to be dragged into war. you know?
Make
You
sure that we
accused her
actually
of-
secure the U.S. homeland.
Your words.
Sean, if you want me to answer the question.
No, I've given you plenty of time to answer the question. I'm going to now restate your words. Frankly, financial corrupting influences that lead them exactly to speak the way that they do when they talk about atrocities with Israel. That, you know, now you're telling me that if somebody in some capacity.
Whoa, when they talk about atrocities from Israel, Sean, don't mislead your audience. That was not for when we're talking about Azerbaijan. So don't mislead your audience.
You are saying that there are, frankly, financial and corrupting influences that lead them exactly to speak the way that they do. Now, if you're saying with those exact words of yours, you're not denying them again, are you? Those are your exact words. If that's what you're saying, my question is simple to you. You're saying that if somebody works for a defense contractor, that is a financial corrupting position when
national security and defense is critical to the cause of freedom and has been throughout human history? And why would you accuse Nikki Haley of being corrupt?
I don't believe.
Wow.
Well, I don't believe that somebody should be able to be the next commander-in-chief if they have monetized their time in government, going from being in debt to making $8 million through military contracting businesses, through service on the board of Boeing. Frankly, it is shameful for somebody to be collecting stock options from corporate boards while they're running for U.S. president. We already have one family in the White House, who I believe has sold off our foreign policy to advance their private interests. The Republican Party needs to be better than that. Needs to be a party where if your campaign is principally being run by super PACs, people who can give unlimited amounts of money to your campaign, I don't think that befits the Republican Party. I think we need to be better than that. So, Sean, you and I may have a different view on that. But my view is, if you're making money off your time in government, then I don't think you're fit to be president of the United States. Well, more importantly, though, what's our policy? Stand with our allies while avoiding World War III. And that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't think you're qualified because you weren't even a Republican or voting Republican until what, 2020?
Well, Sean, I think it depends on what your objectives with this interview are. I voted Libertarian in my first election. I voted Republican in 2020. You're right. I'm not a partisan hack. I come in from the outside.
Forgive you for your screw-up.
I'm an independent-minded patriot who speaks the truth.
It sounds to me like you just want to jump from the private sector yourself, where you made a lot of money. By the way, I applaud capitalism. I applaud successful people.
Sean, I applaud you for being so transparent about your objectives.
I actually think that people work in the defense of our country and the defense industry are playing a vital role for the cause of freedom. So I don't really call it a corrupting influence or suggest that somehow that's a corrupting influence. I actually like the experience that goes along with working for defense contractors. But I've
defense contractors. Okay, hold on. Let's break that down for a second. Sean is clearly here conflating the idea of being a normal soldier, right? Like, I respect your normal people who enlist in the military, all of that. We love the troops, et cetera, with defense contractors, okay? The military industrial complex is one of the most corrupt things in the entire United States. The people, who are working the boards of Raytheon and Grumman and Boeing and all this stuff, okay? They're not doing it for the sake of defending freedom or whatever it is, okay? And they really ought not to be conflated, by the way, same thing goes for America's generals and top military brass, who equally, okay, these people are not patriots. These people are not defending American freedom, and anything you've seen over the past 20 years in terms of the stuff they get up to should tell you about that, right? So he's trying to make this unpatriotic argument here of you don't support defense contractors, but they're fighting for our freedom. No, they're not fighting for our freedom, okay? They are not the average soldier who is enlisting in the army because they want to serve their country or are proud of the flag, okay? The military-industrial complex is not a patriotic thing. Working in it does not make you patriotic, and this should be common. Anything, again, maybe if you said this right in 2001, it'd be an insane thing to say, or at least it would sound insane. Saying it now, is it really a controversial statement to say the military-industrial complex is not good and they're not exactly a patriotic, broadly speaking institution? I don't think it is.
loved about that interview with Tucker, one of the things I loved about the interview with Tucker was we were actually able to have a thoughtful conversation and go deep into issues rather than this kind of political gotcha.
The point is this.
Good.
You
go
on these interviews. Yeah, I have nothing but nice things to say, but here's your problem.
People should watch it.
You go on these shows, people quote your exact words, and you deny your own words. And I'm saying if you're going to be a presidential candidate and you're going to spend, I'm going to give you your exact words, either own it,
Sean, you have been sitting here for years talking about the fake news media.
But you played this all the time.
I'm enjoying this. You have been laughing about the fake news media how many times for the last several years, and now you're buying the mainstream media narrative when you know how corrupt it is.
I am following you. I am quoting your exact words.
Are a problem.
Did I not quote your exact words?
Azerbaijan and Armenia.
Did I or did I not quote your exact words?
It's gone off the rails, guys. I don't know what's happening now.
Did I quote your exact words?
Azerbaijan and Armenia. Absolutely.
Thank you.
About Azerbaijan, yes, you did.
Time to go.
About a different topic, Azerbaijan, where people should actually get their own information rather than filtered through centralized media.
I think it's asinine to think somebody that worked in the defense industry should not be qualified to be president. I think people that never held public office, like you, they're not qualified to be president. Anyway, we'll come back.
Sean Hannity was one of Donald Trump's original supporters, so that statement is a little bit strange. But again, folks, that interview was just a train wreck, okay? What was that? What was happening half the time? Excuse me. I couldn't really hear. But with that said, again, I'm going to close out here with the central point I want to keep emphasizing with people in the context of this entire conversation, which is, yes, again, what's happening in the Middle East, very bad, very tragic. And as you know, as just a human being, it is natural to feel emotional about a lot of the things that you are seeing. Again, on the other side, though, you know, you cannot have a conversation about the Middle East and its conflicts without also bringing in the history of American politics here, especially in regards to the same neocons who have wanted a war with Iran, by the way, long before Hamas ever went into Israel, right? They've wanted this thing since 2003. That's well documented. George W. Bush himself wanted war with Iran. We've seen them call for it for years now, okay? They want to overthrow the Iranian regime using the American military. And when you hear people like Lindsey Graham and I guess Nikki Haley say the things they're saying, like that still has to be pointed out at the same time. And pointing that out and pointing out this very nefarious agenda here to send American children to die in another war for the sand, all right, pointing that out does not make you a defender of Hamas or, you know, a defender of any of this stuff. It just makes you a person who has a level-headed and rational view of American politics, and also, you know, it has an America first view on things, right? It cares about the actual American soldiers who have died for countless wars already for the defense contractors that Sean Hannity is defending. And then on that same front, I would also say, right, you can also make the distinction between having a degree of personal and patriotic respect for the people who enlist to join the military because they, you know, love the country, whatever, while also saying the military leadership in our country is very corrupt. Our military industrial complex, the politicians who send these American kids to war, and especially the defense contractors who lobby the politicians to send the kids to war, that's also bad. But again, on the personal level, in the same way we can look at what's happening in Israel and say it's very sad and tragic and atrocious and all that, but blah, 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 we can also say, again, we still don't support the military industrial complex and we don't support the wars they're trying to send us to. Shouldn't be a hard conversation. So, you know, I wish Sean Hannity and all of these people who, you know, kind of take that side in this could understand the differentiation that us, I don't know, whatever you want to call us, America first conservatives, whatever here, are trying to, the distinction we are trying to draw, right? But with that said, folks, let me know what you think of this entire interview. What do you think of my thoughts on it in the comment section down below? As usual, be sure to check out our friends over at Noble Gold, especially if you are curious in starting to invest And until next time, Alpha Moves Only, God bless. Like and subscribe before you go, and peace.